Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These are major policy tax changes. And once upon a time, we took these major policy tax changes to the citizens of Colorado because we have something called Title 10, Article 20, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Today, you saw the death from the people who swore an oath to support that. Linking the tax program to a tax increase was convenient when it was a federal tax increase. And now, so what we've done is the sponsors of this bill have said, because those definitions changed at the federal level, those tax levels change, then they're going to change the definitions here in Colorado, decoupling them from the federal tax definitions, which is in itself a significant tax change. But because they came up with a special spending program for the children, so you can say that with music and tears, it's because they have a special program for spending that down to zero. So once again, the purpose of spending is taxation. I often say that a little bit cynically, but here it's proof. The purpose of spending is taxation. The purpose of increasing the spending for ESFAC is to justify more taxation. The purpose of this spending is taxation. Proof positive. Multiple states have modified these provisions. Yeah, multiple states are also unable to constrain their spending. Absolutely unable to constrain their spending. And where do they take it out on? Do they rein in their spending? Do they find that $285 million worth of fraud, the 40 million, the other 40 million? Nope. They take it out of the pockets of the citizens of Colorado or their own respective states and tax them more with celebration. It's de minimis. I can guarantee you the next one won't be. It's a tax policy change. As the sponsor said, it's one tax policy offset by another tax policy. Both of them require going before the taxpayer to taxpayers, and yet suddenly, with a wave of the magic wand, they don't. Why? Because, why did this one? Well, as my colleague explained, this one went down to zero because that tax credit was taken out of the surplus that was once upon a time $3 to $4 billion. But because of the success of the majority party of the Colorado, the Gold Dome cesspool, that excess was spent down to zero. And then suddenly all of the things that they used that they based on that excess went down to zero as well. So because they spent, now if you take that $4 billion and you divide that under 4 million voters, that would be roughly $1,000 per voter. For a family filing jointly, that'd be roughly $2,000 per year. And the General Assembly said, you don't need it, we do. And when they ran out of that money, they said, we're coming back for more, we're gonna take it out of your job. Now, I suppose this can be sued, this can be challenged in a court of law. I hope it is. I hope there's a lawsuit that has to do with this and that there's because I think then the penalties are the damage plus 10%. But I want to also look at what else this does. Because we're just going to look at some rough back of the envelope math. That on the order of, and probably what the overall purpose of this is another that $20,000 to $30,000 non-citizens family in Colorado could end up claiming this new EFAC each year. By the way it's structured, intentionally structured, to take it out of the pockets of the citizens of Colorado, with a total EFAC outlays of these in the ballpark of $10 to $20 million annually. So we'll roughly call it $15 million as a midpoint, but let's look at why. Recent profiling shows that there are about 300,000 non-citizens living in Colorado, 245,400 children, roughly. In the state with at least one immigrant parent, about 92% of those children are U.S. born, so these are rough numbers. About 20,000 are non-citizen children. We certainly do not So those are citizens of another country. The citizens of another country, probably a socialist country, that has driven them out. If we assume an average of two children per immigrant family, and we do all the math, there are around 60,000 non-citizen families with children. Median non-citizen household income in Colorado is about $70,900. And about $90,000 for US-born households. That's median, not average, not mean. Non-citizens have a higher poverty rate and near poverty rate. So yes, that is a problem. But what that does when you put people and you lock them into a status where they are permanently exploitable and expendable by the lack of documentation, you create a permanent poverty situation. So if you do the math, with incomes low enough, we say that's about 60%. Only about 70% will file EFAC. 60,000, that turns into roughly $25,000. It's not going to all be the highest end because some of these jobs are actually decent paying jobs that would otherwise go to citizens of Colorado. Plausible average would be around $500 to $700 per year. So really on the low end, we're looking at subsidizing with the taxes of the citizens of Colorado, an additional $15 to $20 million for non-citizens. Why? This is the Colorado Fees for Feels program. It makes people feel good, and so they don't care if they take your money. They don't care if you are impoverished by their Fees for Feels program. The only thing that matters to the legislators in the General Assembly is the feels. And they will fee you to death, in this case tax you to death, because we know it's a revenue increase that has no specific spending because they had to invent a program on which to spend it in order to give a large chunk of it to non-citizens of Colorado. Colorado, I hope you feel good about your fees because the Gold Dome cesspool feels good about its feels.